Well, thank you, Paige, and hello. It's great that we have a strong audience with us today from all over the country, a lot of board members, and a lot of people who've had special assessments in the last couple of years. So I look forward to an opportunity to share what we've learned by working with so many associations to help you with your association, help you have a little bit of success at your association. Well, you've all heard the saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. For years, managers, attorneys, accountants, and reserve study professionals have been telling boards to get a reserve study and adequately fund their reserves. But looking across the country, the majority of boards continue to nod their heads and say, you're right, we should do a better job of funding our reserves and not do anything about it. And that's what leads to special assessments. Well, in today's webinar, Funding Reserves and What Happens When You Don't, we tackle the challenge of reducing that gap between what boards know is good and what they actually do. This is the outline we'll follow in today's program. An important question is, can we actually see the future? And that's an important starting question because it's usually the first excuse to not funding reserves. Because, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, so why create a plan? So in this section of the program, I'll share what I believe will help us see that we all can see the future. To get to an appointment on time, or to prepare for a test or a game, you need to plan in advance for that future event. When you leave your house 20 minutes before you need to get to a dinner event, and it's a 20-minute drive, you think you're totally good. Until you look at the gas gauge and you realize you need to get gas, and then you remember that you need to pick up a hostess gift. So because you can see the future, you know before the event starts, 20 minutes ahead of time, that you're going to be late. And in so many areas of life, we can see the future. We can see what's going to happen. So let me show you how this applies to boards and community associations. Now, the key word today is perspective. It's easy to see the things that are right in front of us. That's our reality. I could reach out and touch and feel how solid that tree is in my own backyard. But the same backyard tree looks different compared to a forest that's at the edge of town. Then that same big tree starts to look small and insignificant compared to an entire forest of trees. And that's perspective. While your backyard tree seems very real, you know there's a whole lot more out there beyond touching distance. Then you back away even further. You realize that the forest ends at the base of a mountain range. You may not see the rocks or feel the snow, but it's there, and you know it's real and huge. The point is that distant things are there. They're real, and they don't go away if all you do is focus on the things up close. Those big, distant things are still there. Now let's talk about perspective and point of view with respect to properties. Let's have a little mid-rise property here. And for anyone with an untrained eye, which is what we'll talk about first, you can easily see near-term conditions pretty clearly. You can see that the paint looks good, or if it's dry and flaky. You can see that the carpet is new or worn, and you can see if the patio furniture looks inviting, or if it's seen better days. The same untrained person may not so clearly or know so clearly if the fence, the perimeter wood fence, is in good shape or poor shape. And they don't necessarily know if the entry system is new or aged. Their skill is in the near-term events, not the mid-range events. So you could say that their mid-range opinions is just a bit gray. And if we step a little further out, the untrained eye is not even likely to have an opinion about things further into the future. Some long-range things like elevator modernization or other major mechanical items or roof system, things like that. And again, that's perspective at work. But remember, someone, if you move to a different person, if someone has an experienced eye, like a manager or someone with a construction background, sees those same mid-range type things, their condition might be pretty obvious to them. They know about those mid-range things, and from their point of view, they know enough even about the long-range things to know that, hey, there's someone I can contact to tell me what I need to know. I know I can get help. And then if you move to the expert eye opinion or perspective, someone like a reserve estate professional, someone who looks at building elements on almost a daily basis, even the long-range items seem clear to them. They think, no problem, I got this. They know what the little telltales are. They know how long things last. They're very comfortable making projections about things out in the far distance. So the role of the untrained eye is often played by the board or homeowner. And we have lots of board members and homeowners here in today's webinar. The board member's job is to make decisions about the property. And making observations about the property really is not their strength. Their mid-range observations are commonly made pretty well by the managers. They are the people who see a number of different properties on a regular basis and hear about them as a part of their job, rubbing elbows with other managers, sharing best practices, things like that. And the role of having a long-range vision is generally played by your reserve estate professional. It's our job to see, to make observations, and make conclusions and recommendations about things that are even still further away, out in the long-range timescale. Now let's talk about what that means to you. What's your goal? What's your job? Well, your job as a board member is to make decisions that protect, preserve, and enhance the physical and financial assets of the association. No one expects board members to be experts in those mid-range and long-range areas, or to be experts in various subjects or disciplines. Your job as a board member is to make decisions that guide the association forward. And where does this authority come from? Well, it comes from the governing documents. Those governing documents define the roles and responsibilities, and that includes who's going to lead the association. And that responsibility falls on the shoulders of the boards. And you wonder, well, how can we do this? We seem like we're overmatched. Well, make sure that you're working and living under the authority of the business judgment rule. You're not experts. We know that. Boards are expected just to do their best. So board decisions are not measured against industry experts. The business judgment rule, again, from my position here as a reserve estate provider, we see that this is a nice three-part test that protects boards trying to do their best when their actions are challenged. And they're going to be fine if they operate in good faith, if they operate in the best interest of the association, and if they reach out with due diligence, they reach out and ask questions when they don't know what the answer is. And that's all about learning what's best for your association. So get the knowledge and perspective of others. You don't have to do it all yourself. But you as a board need to act. Those expenses are coming. Without acting, the place is going to fall apart. It's going to start to look like the place in this cartoon. Your job, again, is to protect, preserve, and enhance the association, not let it just deteriorate under your watch. So I wanted to make the point that in this first section, different people with different skill sets can see the future better than others. You don't have to wonder if it can be done. Please take my word that, yes, it can be done. Different people see things differently. And I want to make it clear that it's the board's responsibility to reach out and get help when they don't know things that are outside their particular area of expertise. And if you have any questions on that, please just jot them in the Q&A, and I'll try to get to them at the end of the program. Now let's turn the corner and talk about preparing for your mountains. You're probably wondering what I mean when I talk about preparing for your mountains. Well, it's a way of characterizing the challenges in front of you. What mountains are you going to have to climb? So for you and your association, what's ahead of you? What are the things out there that you might not see clearly? Well, let me show you how this all comes together. And bottom line is the future is coming at you faster than you realize, but you can get help to prepare. So let's think about flying from San Francisco to New York. On the way, you know there's obstacles, those big Rocky Mountains. It's a lot of territory to cover and a lot of navigating to do. And on the way, again, there's those Rockies. And when you're on the ground with your vision, it may seem far away, but if you're a pilot, knowing you're going to cover hundreds of miles per hour, you know you're going to get there pretty darn fast. Your pilot knows enough to know that it takes this amount of preparation, climbing, altitude gaining, to have the altitude necessary to cross safely. You can relax and leave that in their capable hands. Now, this may be one of the most important slides of my presentation, It's a great illustration, a teaching tool of having to work fast to keep up, not let things get ahead of you. It's about Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory from the old I Love Lucy TV program. And they're on a chocolate treat assembly line. If you haven't seen a short-minute clip of this about 5-minute comedy sketch, I'll put a link to the clip in the outline of this program so you can find it and see it for yourself. It's a hoot. But the point is, the future's coming, and you need to work fast to keep up. There's consequences to inaction or moving too slowly. And the comedy sketch makes this point clear, puts a smile on your face, and does a better job of teaching than I probably could. But let's get back to that trip. What's important in the community association world is that boards need to appreciate that they're the ones in the cockpit. In my experience, too many boards are acting like they're just looking out the window in seat 23A. And that may be the case for many of you board members who had a recent special assessment. Prior boards weren't piloting the plane. They weren't running the show. So board members need to appreciate that they're the ones responsible for flying the plane. And that's why so many associations across the country are struggling. The board's not running their hands on the controls, taking care of things. They're in the back talking with other passengers. I want to make clear that the board is not alone. Management and other professionals like reserve study preparers are like air traffic control. We're here to help set association leaders up for success. And when boards aren't paying attention to their duties or don't reach out for help, the association crashes into the mountain range of expenses. And in our community association world, we call that a special assessment. You didn't have enough altitude to get over the mountains. Everyone suffers, the flight crew and the board and all the passengers, and those are the homeowners. That happens when the flight crew is not flying the plane, not appreciating the obstacles in front of them, and not exercising their duty of inquiry to get counsel from air traffic control. So let me show you a few slides now, what it looks like from a reserve study provider's point of view. These are annual reserve expenses over the next 30 years. This is one profile. I've got 8 here. You see how there's a few years spread out that are the big years. That's different from this profile, where the big year is clearly towers over everything else. This board needs to make sure they make it through this big year expense. That's the one standout. Or it could be this board, where they're in a jam. They've got to be prepared pretty much right now because their major expense is just a year out. Or it could be this association that has an array, a whole number of large expense years, 4 of them coming in the next, or after about 20 years. Or it could be like this. You look at this and I think, wow, looks like a forest of expenses. So this board has a lot going on. It may be easier actually just to focus on the years when they can slow down and catch their breath. Or this one, bunch of expense years, a few more years in between. It's important for these boards in the, maybe we can call them the rest years, to not forget to get ready for these other big expenses. Or another one that is more discrete, just a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big expense years over the next 30, about once every 5 years. Or it could be like this, just a whole network. It's almost constant. For this association, $100,000 to $120,000 a year, just almost on an ongoing basis. So every association is going to have a different set of expenses or mountains that they need to climb. And they learn that from their air traffic control. Now, at this point in time, we're going to help you understand how to look forward, face that mountain range of expenses, and remember, they're all approaching fast, one of those per year, and they're not stopping to wait for you. Boards need to have your hands on the control, and you need to be regularly sure from air traffic control to safely navigate to the future. All right, now we're going to help you learn about your vision for seeing and preparing for the future, how to understand what your own eyes and ears and senses are telling you. Your senses, your ability to see forward, to look forward into the future, it helps if you can relate to your own experience. And that may be like thinking about how long it takes to do your daily commute or one of your normal errands. So let's go back to where we started, at a mid-rise condo building. where for the person with the inexperienced eye, typically the board or homeowner, they can clearly see these near-term projects. You know things. Again, like that normal errand that you run to school, to the office, to the grocery store, whatever it is. Except now, let's think of it like actually going to the eye doctor and getting your vision checked. Those big letters or numbers at the top, the easy ones, they're easy to see for the inexperienced eye, the board or the homeowner. Now for this person, the big near-term things are clear. They dominate your vision, your comprehension. Those mid-range projects are a bit fuzzy and you don't even care about those little tiny ones far out into the future. That's totally fine. That's someone with near-term vision. Now you get to someone with mid-range vision. They can see a few years into the future. Take some experience to spot the differences from something that's old, something that's new, and the implications of how fast these things are happening. But to spot these mid-range projects, you need some discernment above what's considered patently obvious at the top of the eye chart. And then for those long-range projects, you probably saw this coming. Those are generally things that take a special skill or background of experience. It may mean corrective lenses, binoculars, but to help you understand what's going on here, that trained person can make good estimates. They see these distant things clearly. Now, time moves forward just without pause, like a freight train just barreling down the tracks. Those future projects will happen. They draw closer every day. If you wait until you personally can see them clearly with your own eyes, your own skills, that means that the elevator is failing. The roof is leaking. There are potholes in the asphalt. And at that point in time, it's too late to plan ahead. And coal miners, with their lives on the line, figured this out long ago. Miners would die from carbon monoxide poisoning deep in a mine. They learned that canaries were especially sensitive to carbon monoxide, so they started bringing canaries down into the mine as an early warning alarm. So when the canaries stopped singing, the miners knew, bingo, they're in danger and they need to get out of there quickly. So they found a tool to help them see the future more clearly than they could see it themselves. So remember that on this trip that you're on, you and your association, although you're piloting this airplane of the association into the future, you're not alone. Use your team, use the resources at your disposal to help see ahead. So use your own early warning system, and that will help you gain understanding and insights that you just don't have all on your own if you rely on your own skills. That's your early warning system. Okay, now let's talk about what happens if there's a failure to plan ahead. And, well, besides a special assessment and safety concern, and then also what happens if the board does plan ahead. Let's talk about what happens. Well, let's start with what happens if you're not prepared. The mountains of expenses are coming. A classic image is that of Alfred E. Newman. He's the mascot and cover boy of the old Mad magazine. His famous phrase was, "What? Me worry?" And it's funny because we all know it's silly to not prepare. And that could be as simple as failing to turn the lights on when it's in the dark, stubbing your toe, knocking your head on something, or getting slammed and surprised by things that really should not be surprising, that you have the tools to avoid. And we call these things the Ds. Higher cost due to deferred maintenance. That happens when a simple project gets delayed and gets bigger. Disruption due to special assessments, declining property values, political problems due to owner distrust of the board and the manager, general discouragement and disappointment, a low community spirit, and the danger of litigation that the board has when things start to turn bad at the association. Or it could be an E word, expensive. And let me show you what I mean by that. This is a chart from a reserve study provider's point of view of a $250,000 roof. Happens every 15 years, and you can either pay it over time, putting money into the bank and getting I ran this model with a 1% interest earnings. With the bank paying a portion during those 15 years, the homeowners only pay about $231,000, $232,000. And with the bank putting in their portion, you have enough money to buy your $250,000 roof. If you special assess at the last minute, it's going to take a $250,000 special assessment to pay a $250,000 roof bill. If you wait and rely on a loan and you're financing that for 7 years at current rates, that's going to cost your homeowners about $320,000 because of the interest you're now paying to the bank. And see what a difference that makes. It's about an $88,000 expense that you've put on the shoulders of your homeowners, basically penalizing them for you, the board's inability or indecision or just plain lack of planning. That's $88,000 that they didn't need to pay. So you can make it expensive on your homeowners by making a mistake in this area, failing to plan. And remember, a special assessment, you say, don't worry, we'll just special assess. Well, that's not a good solution. It's disruptive, it's unexpected, it's unfair. And remember, these kinds of things take time. It takes time to get an owner vote of approval. It's never a sure thing. And it's also never a good idea to make an emergency out of something that you could have avoided if you planned ahead. And keep that phrase in mind as I talk about loans. Okay, you say, well, no worries, I can get a loan. Well, possibly can, but as I showed just a moment ago, it's an expensive way to pay for predictable projects. Remember, the loan requires you to qualify. It's no sure thing that you will qualify, and qualifying takes time, meaning weeks or months. And that means it takes too long to get a loan in order to fix a leaky roof. You need that money now. And once you get the loan, and this is where planning ahead really would have helped, the banker is going to get involved with your association to ensure you have the sufficient cash they need to get paid back. So they're going to insist on higher monthly assessments, enough to pay back that loan. And you're thinking, gee, if we would have done this 5 or 10 years ago, we could have avoided the entire loan hassle to start with. And you're absolutely right. And the managers here are going to tell you that loans make administering the association more complicated, and they also complicate sales and closing. So loans are just not a good fallback option. So like a cartoon I showed you before, your association is a product of your choices. The portfolio managers in our audience know one or more associations like this Aspen Creek condos, and some of you board members and homeowners may have the challenge of living in an association like this, where the board is just not taking action on these big mountains of expenses that are coming their direction. They're just getting hit and slammed. Okay, so how do you prepare? How do you turn this hard situation into a positive situation? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You fund reserves as needed, get the cash that you need, spend the reserves to fix things in a timely manner, update your reserve study regularly to get fresh counsel, to get fresh information, and listen to your advisors, just like flight crews listening to the control tower. And why do you do it? Because the mountains are real. Deterioration is real. Those expenses are real, and they are huge. Mother Nature and Father Time are there, and they don't negotiate. All your assets are getting older and wearing out every day. That deterioration is real, and just like Lucy and Ethel in the Chocolate Factory comedy sketch, you need to work fast to keep up. And when I travel and stay in hotels or jump into a rental car, I'm reminded that in so many areas of our life, these things are taken care of. When I stay at a hotel, I never expect to get a supplemental bill for recarpeting the hallways. When I pick up my rental car, I never expect them to ask me to get an oil change or new tires on my way in just because I was the wrong person at the wrong time. They maintain the assets with their daily fees. That's part of responsible running a business. You say, okay, I get that, Robert. And I still want to put one thing in your plate, and that is funding reserves appropriately actually is a wise financial move. Costs you money, but look at this. We did a study on the relationship between percent funded, basically the strength of a reserve fund, and home values. We looked at percent funded compared to dollars per square foot in home values. And see what we saw? We found that home values were on average 12.6% higher when the association, equivalent associations, were funding reserves. What we learned is curb appeal is real. Strong reserve fund provides for the timely care of the property, pays for itself in thousands of dollars in higher home values. Compare that to the extra $50 a month that you're considering raising the assessments. Thousands of dollars in higher home values. Okay, so with that, let me summarize our time together and bring this program to a close. As a board member, you're in the cockpit. You're the flight crew. The mountains are ahead. Every association has its own different set of upcoming expenses or mountains. Air traffic controls knows where these mountains are, how high they are, and where you are. You're reckless if you're not gripping the controls tight and getting regular updates from air traffic control. If you're operating like you're back in seat 23A, everyone on board that aircraft is going to suffer a bumpy or dangerous flight. And remember that it is a multi-year journey. Those mountains are all scattered out, and you may be only on a 1 or 2 year board member term. You don't have to face all those challenges at once, and most associations have the speed that they're traveling, yet the time that they need to prepare in advance, if you choose to do so. So we always encourage our board members to listen to their manager, reach out to get help from your other professionals. If you're a manager, be that voice of experience to your board clients, and encourage the board to lean on the reserve study professional who know the terrain, know the maps, and have that long-term vision we spoke about earlier to help the board and the association arrive safely in their journey to the future. But remember, it's the board who flies the plane. It's you, the board's job to run the association, to lead it well. These expenses are real, and they take time to prepare. And there's people who know where they are and how big they are. If you ignore them until they're right in front of you, you've created your own emergency. Okay, so we have webinars like this, but for those of you looking for some assistance, tangible assistance, you can go to our website, reservestudy.com, and you can see an opportunity there to request a proposal. You scroll down to the bottom, you can sign up for our email list or look through our website where there's a deep library of resources, articles, videos, things of that nature. Again, we're trying to help you on your journey to the future. If it's easier for you or you prefer YouTube, we suggest that you subscribe to our channel. And so you'll not only see all of what we have there, but get notification of all the free learning resources that are there that you can share with other managers or boards. And remember, it's all free. And this recording will be there in about a week, joining the others. And another tool we have to help you in this challenging process of navigating to the future is a new online reserve calculator. We released it in 2020. It's called UPlanet, and it's kind of like a little flight simulator program, allowing you to test some of your ideas. You can see what happens if we reduce our reserve funding. What happens if we increase our reserve funding? What happens if we move our roof project out a year? Or if it's more or less expensive than anticipated. You can do this all on UPlanet. And the great news is UPlanet is free. You get a year's access with every professionally prepared reserve study from Association Reserves. If you're a reader and you like resources, we've got a book called Understanding Reserves. You can get a Chapter 1 for free download from our website, or you can order the book for yourself as a nice desktop or bookcase resource. And something new is we have now a weekly podcast for board members. Some other companies have joined us in creating a podcast called Common Sense for Common Areas. It's a 30-minute podcast, drops every Monday, that is there to educate, encourage, inspire board members, give them a little weekly set of tips and ideas to help them more successfully face the challenges at their association. You can subscribe from all major podcast platforms. And again, it's called Common Sense for Common Areas, 30 minutes once a week. And with that, I'll turn the microphone over to Paige, who will coordinate our Q&A time together.